What's going on, guys? Danny from Slow Restoration, and today we are doing some work on a 2012 Chevy Cruze. It does have the 1.8 liter Ecotech motor, and as you can see, we have the coolant bottle off, and that is because these leak. Not 100% sure where it leaks. I can see kind of spots all over it, but it was extremely low on coolant. And it was dripping down on the ABS control module and then down kind of on the frame rail and landing on the floor. So we got the easiest way to show how to remove that is actually already have it removed. We have the replacement here. It is a Dorman piece. The box is over here. So it's a Dorman 603-383, and it comes complete with the cap already on it, and it's a self-contained unit. It's actually extremely easy to change. The biggest problem you're probably gonna have is getting these hoses off, which really isn't a big deal. It's just you slide the clamp back, and I usually grab gently the hose with the pliers. Once you get it to twist on there, it'll come off. So we'll show kind of reverse procedure with putting this in, but on the bottom here, there is a groove on the bottom of this can. There's a tab here. Let's see if I can point it out right here. That goes down in that groove. As you can see, it's a bigger spot here, and then you slide it back. So it takes a little bit of pushing and pulling. Then it actually locks on this, and then there's a locking clip right here that clips down on this front tab off the shock tower or the strut tower. So like I said, we're going to show reverse procedure with putting it in. Obviously the new one looks much nicer, much cleaner. We're actually we'll put the hoses on after we install the bottle. I think that'll be the easiest way. We actually did not drain any coolant. This thing was actually that low that when I pulled the hoses off, there was just a couple little dribbles. So again, this new one's got the same tabs. Actually, I'm sorry, it's not this piece, it's actually this piece. I pointed to the wrong piece earlier. So it's a kind of a square T-shaped tab there, and that goes down inside the piece on the car. See if we can get these cables out of the way a little bit. This battery actually, I think, is the wrong size for the car, so it's slid around a little bit. So again, we can take that, put it down inside there, and it just slips right back. It just takes a little bit of wiggling. As you can see here, let me get my light over here. This back tab here, it just pushes over it, and then this front tab, once you get it back far enough, there we go, it just clips right over. And then we'll take this, the bulge then goes out towards the outside of the car. This piece just goes on and just clips right in place. And that is all that there is in installing this, except for hooking up the bottom larger hose and the top smaller hose. We'll set our light here, show you how that's done. It's very simple also. Make sure your hoses are in good shape on the inside. We're not afraid. There goes our light. Set that back up. So this one's just going to slip on. That's done. We'll slip that hose clamp back on. See if I can do this with one hand. So once we get it up on there, we can reposition. I'll finish hooking that later. That hose clamp, it needs to go back a tiny bit more. The upper hose is a smaller hose. Again, Just slips right up on there, and this one will be easy. Put it right back in place. So that one's done. The only thing left to do is slip that bottom clamp on there, and I'll do that when I get both hands. We'll top the coolant system off. It's got marks on the side here where you should have it. And there's the max full line. So we'll top that off, start this thing up, let it get up to temperature, and keep an eye on that. But a very, very easy install. Like I said, it's a whole unit. Comes with the cap and all, so it's a problem, I think, for these cars, so you might run into it if you own one. There we have our coolant topped off. We'll put the cap back on here, screw that on, and we'll just start this up. Like I said, let it get up to operating temperature, let the thermostat open, and we'll make sure the system's let out good, and we should be good to go. The other thing we need to do to this car, as you can see down there, there's some wetness on the subframe. The transmission cooler lines are actually leaking. So we got some new ones, and we also need to change those out. So first step, we're probably going to throw it up on the lift. You wouldn't have to, but since we have that capability, I think we're going to throw it up on the lift. That'll give us more room to work, and we can actually clean up a little bit better. All right, we have it set up at the lift here now, but there's a couple things we need to do before we put it up, and one of them is get this retainer slid back on the top line here. As you can see, it's just a plastic retainer. It slips back. So there's a metal circle clip that we'll have to get a small pick tool and pull that out, and then it's just a quick disconnect line. So once you get that circle clip out, I'll show you what it's kind of like an E-clip. Once I get it out, I'll show you. Once you get the clip out, the line just simply slips right out of the radiator. So let's get that pulled out. We have one there. The other one is in the bottom, so we'll put it up to reach that. And then spin this light around. It's pretty tight working in here. One of the lines comes over, and you can kind of see it. I think you can see it right through there. Get a better angle. There you go. Point it out with my hand. Move the light, and then we can get the GoPro in there. So right there is the fitting. It's probably a 13 millimeter. We'll pull the nut off there, and then the line just simply pulls out. It's not a quick disconnect because it bolts, but it's similar. It's got an O-ring on it. That's one of the lines. The other line comes around to the back side of the trans, kind of by the rack and pinion. So using a little pick tool, kind of like that. Here's the clip. You can kind of just reach down and get the corner on there and pop that up, and then kind of grab it here and pull that out. Once you get the hang of how they come out, they're really not that bad. They can be frustrating to do it first, but we have that out. Now this line will just pull out of the radiator. We do have a fastener down here. We'll have to unclip it from, but as you can see, it just pulls out at this point. But there is a fastener of some sort down here. Our light's right in our eyes. So we'll pop that off. It's just a clips in the radiator, helps support that. And once again, with that bolt removed, that'll just pop right up out of there. Now it will leak, so we're going to kind of hold off from pulling it totally out of there right this second until we get that bottom line off and get it drained. But for now, we're done up top. Let's go ahead and put the car up, and we'll pick up from the bottom. All right, from underneath, you can actually look through this little grate piece here and see the other cooler line. Hopefully you can see it up in there, and you can reach your hand through this spot here. You can see how much this has been leaking too. But you can see the line coming down through there, so you can reach your hand up through there and pull that clip off, Once we have that clip off, we'll go ahead and pull that line out. We have our drain pan here. We'll let that drain. All right, as you can see, we have the cooler lines out, so we'll just compare them to the new ones, make sure we have the right ones. Let me set these down and I will show you. There's our new ones. They look the same, so we're good. So real quick, I'll show you. I know I skipped a couple steps here. We ended up with a coolant leak in this thing too, so I had to drain the coolant system, and with that drained, it makes it a lot easier. I don't know if it's 100% necessary. The cooler lines run under this radiator hose here. So with the coolant system drained, I was able to remove that radiator hose, which makes a lot more room here, of course. Still with that, once I got that back, you can kind of see the stud sticking out back there. Get my light, there it is. It's back by the CV axle. That's where the rear cooler line bolts onto the transmission. Once that's out, of course, we had the whole front unhooked, and still I couldn't, the way it was bent, it wouldn't come out because it goes behind this motor mount here. As you can see, we have the bolts out of the motor mount. 3 bolts that bolt straight down into the top of the transmission. It allows that, there's enough play in the mount, you can pull that up, and then you can pull the line right between the motor mount and the transmission. So we were able to fish them out. It takes a little bit of fighting, but with the new ones, it's going to make it a lot easier to go in with that mount loose. I'm not sure if you could bend them enough to get it out or not, but it's really not that big a deal to pull those 3 bolts out and take that mount loose. So we got the old lines out. We'll clean everything up, get the new lines routed back through, and then just hook everything back up. So with our new line set here, as I said, we're going to just route these back through. We can kind of just route that through here. It does take a little bit. Be careful. They do have O-rings, new O-rings on here. They stay on pretty good. Make sure you don't knock it off or nick it as you're routing it through. So we'll get that through there. The other obstacle here is the oil fill cap for the transmission. You can remove that. I don't want to drop anything in there, so I think I can do it without removing it. But if you're having issues, you can unscrew that cap right there. All right, as you can see, the oil fill cap is now removed because it is just way easier to remove that. Once you remove that, you can get that line right past there. So now we have our line passed. Now we'll finish routing them. It does give you a new clip here. We unclip the one just to make it easier to spin them. So let's finish routing them. We'll get that back plugged in. We'll get this front plugged down in and get our lines put back. One thing you will want to do before you plug the lines in, you can do it later, but it's much easier now to take the circle clips or the E-clips, whatever you want to call them, snap them back in place now. You can use new ones. They're reusable, but it's ideally you would want to use new ones. Pop these back into the radiator quick fittings first, and then just snap your lines back in, and you can hear them click most of the times, but just pull out and make sure they actually snapped in when you're done. All right, we have our new clip popped in place here. We have this line here hooked on. The nuts started, not tightened up yet. Make sure you put the nut on to keep the line from popping off. Of course, the back line is run under that motor mount now, and I'll put my GoPro down here. Trying to get a light. Yeah, so you can see that one's on now too. Again, put the nut on so it doesn't keep popping back out. We'll go underneath and tighten that up later. Now we're going to go ahead and put our motor mount bolts back in, snug those up, and then it's just a matter of rerouting these front lines. Like I said, it's definitely much easier. I think you could probably do it, but you're definitely going to fight it a lot more with this coolant hose off, this upper radiator hose pulled off. Obviously that hose comes around and goes right over top of these lines and plugs in right there. So it may be worth your while to drain the coolant to do that, so you're not fighting it quite as bad. So all right, we have our line snapped in. There is a grommet or a zip tie with a push clip that goes into the radiator boss right here, so make sure that goes in, and it's kind of got to go in the same time as this push connector. Once you have that in, it clips. Try to pull it back out. Obviously that one's in there nice and tight, so we'll put our recliner tip back on there, spin around, and it just snaps on over top, keeps that circle clip from being able to come off. So that's locked on there now. We'll do the same thing at the bottom, but make sure your lines are snapped in nice and tight. All right guys, we got our coolant line hooked back up. The transmission core lines are completely finished up. Everything's secured. It is running, it's up to temperature. The last thing we gotta do is check our transmission fluid level. There is no dipstick, so as you can see right there, there's a plug right behind the axle. We're gonna pull it out and we should see some dripping out of it. If you see dripping out, obviously if it's pouring out, then it's overfilled. If it's dripping out, then you just put the plug back in, you're done. I already have this loose, so let's go ahead and back it out and see how much we need to add, if any. Don't take it for granted that you're going to need to add some, especially if it's a used car. You don't know if someone's overfilled it in the past. So we are not dripping. Here's the drain plug. We are not dripping, so we definitely have to add some. So let's get our light up top. We do have a drain pan underneath, as you can see, to catch anything that comes out. So let's go around here, get our light set up. Right there is the fill plug. Here's our fill plug. We'll set that to the side, and all we need to do is dump enough fluid in until it starts trickling out. We have the funnel set up, and make sure you're putting the right transmission fluid in. This takes Dextron 6. Definitely make sure you're putting the right stuff in, and we're just going to dump it in, a little bit of it in at a time until it starts running out of that hole there. All right guys, as you can see, it's just starting to dribble out of there, so we are full at that point. So we'll put the plug back in, and we only used just over a half a quart, so it doesn't take a whole lot when you replace these trans cooler lines. We don't know how much it was leaking before, so you may not need that much, but we are full. We can put the plug in and this job's complete. All right, so obviously we got everything finished up here. A lot of people don't like the fact that these transmissions don't have a dipstick in them. I honestly don't mind it. What I really dislike is actually manufacturers that you need a special tool. Some of them have a drain. It's a plug in the bottom of the pan, and it's a special tool you got to screw up in there and count the drips. It's a mess. This you don't have. It's just a fill plug. So, well, it's a fill plug up here and a fill 2 plug on the side. So you take that out, and like I said, you just fill it up until it starts trickling out. To me, that's a much more accurate way than even a dipstick. If you've ever did a transmission service, you normally dump the trans fluid down the dipstick tube, and it takes forever for that to drain down to where you can get an accurate reading. This is very quick, and you can't go wrong. If you have that plug out and you fill it up until it starts trickling out, you're done. There's no misreading of the dipstick or anything of that nature. So to me, it makes sense. I'm all right with it. So thanks for stopping by. Have a good day.